Well, I just have to say, first of all, I'm going to welcome everyone who's here. You are in for such a treat. And Barbara, I have been excited about this day for so long. I love playing with you, talking to you. You are one of the most wise
Mm.
women I know. I'm going to start crying. Ever since I started reading your books, and that's maybe why I pulled you so many books. I've read almost all of them, I think. I pulled one of the first ones I read, which was Overcoming Under Earning. And I'm like, who is this? She is magical. And you're such a gift to me. And I know everybody who's in your world. So thank you for being back on the show today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I love talking to you, Julie. I love your energy. So I'm looking forward to this.
Oh my gosh. There's a lot of ways that we can go, but I think what would be important, just in case someone doesn't know you well yet or didn't listen to the first interview, would you mind just sharing a little bit about your story, especially as it relates to both being female writer, but also dealing with healing your relationship with money. And I'm going to leave it there. Maybe the Cliff Notes version, because I just want everyone to get a sense of who you are
Yeah.
in case they don't know.
So I was born in a wealthy family, and the only advice my father ever gave me about money was don't worry, because under that was the unspoken assumption there'll always be a man to take care of you, which I thought was great advice. I loved it. I didn't understand money. I just wanted to spend it. And I married a man who was a lawyer. Then he went to work in my father's company, and then he became a stockbroker. So he was perfect, right? But I found out very early in my marriage is that he was a compulsive gambler. And I found out for 15 years, every year, many times a year, I'd find out he was gambling my money, my inheritance. And here's the insane part, Julie.
Mm.
I continued to let him manage the money because that's how I didn't understand it. It scared me. I was terrified. Um, and I continued to let him manage it. And finally, after 15 years, I got a divorce. And I decided after my divorce, money's not my thing. I do not want to deal with money. Well, I have this theory that if you don't deal with your money will deal with you. And I got tax bills for way almost 2 million, 1,800,000 and some $1,000 for back taxes my ex didn't pay, for illegal deals he got us in. My ex had left the country. I didn't have anywhere close to 1 million, not even close. And my father wouldn't lend me the money. And that's when I knew I had to get smart because I had 3 daughters. I was not going to raise those girls on the street. I wasn't talking to my parents. They were out of the picture. So I did what you're supposed to do. I went to the classes, I read the books, and my eyes would glaze over, my brain would fog up, and I just felt hopelessly stupid.
Mm.
But I swear to God, I really believe that if you are committed, like no back door, and I was committed, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. But the universe revolves to help you reach your goal when you have a strong commitment. And I was a journalist writing for the San Francisco Business Times, and I got hired for a research project to interview women who were smart with money. It's like I couldn't have made that up. It was like incredible. Talking to those women, hearing how nobody popped out of the womb knowing how to manage money, but those interviews changed my life. I not only got about smart about money myself, but I wrote my first book, Prince Charming Isn't Coming, How Women Get Smart About Money. And now, 7 books later, here am I talking to you as an expert in finances. I mean, it's crazy.
That is just, there's so many nuggets and there's so much in what you just said that is so powerful. And even just the whole, probably well-intentioned advice from your father, I think especially in that, uh, in those days where it was like, oh, don't worry about it. Just, you get taken care of. And then hearing your story, I mean, my stomach dropped when you listed the number of what you owed in back taxes. And
That's about what happened to me. My stomach dropped.
like,
It did.
that's a no joke number. That's not like, $5,000. That's a lot of money. And just interesting, you got committed. And I think this is so important. And look how the universe served up the most perfect opportunity to do research on women that were making money, and that you were immersed in that. It's just, you can hear, okay, something's shifting here. You're being guided. Can you just, I guess what I'd love to do is summarize, like, what did you learn? What shifted for you after getting, yeah, all those interviews, after interviewing those women that had made
That's
money?
a good question because it wasn't at all what I expected.
Mm,
What I learned from those women, I learned quite a lot.
yeah.
But I think the most important thing I learned is it wasn't what they did, it was how they thought. And when I shifted my thinking, that's when everything changed.
Mm,
And it's so interesting. I got that in my first book, which I wrote 27 years ago, and it's still selling, which is incredible. But my latest book, Rewire for Wealth, I brought in the neuroscience, which showed me why that was so powerful. So it was kind of, I've done a full circle with my books, but yes, it was how they thought. And I was focusing on changing my behavior
yeah.
when the second I started thinking differently, that's when my world.
Can we talk for a minute? By the way, I love Rewiring for Wealth. I love Secret Success. As I said, I just love your books. And I think for those who are just like, okay, I can hear the question, like, all right, well, how am I supposed to be thinking? Right? You said it wasn't just on the behavior. It was the way you were thinking. I know that's a big, like, hey, can you kind of bottom line, like, how should we be thinking about money? Because I do think it goes into some of the questions I really want to talk about that have to do with today and the fear that we're seeing. What did you notice was a similar
What
sort
I
of
noticed is that I forget how many women I interviewed, but I would say it was over 100. And what
mm,
I noticed is that every one of them came to a series of the same realizations. And there were seven in all. They were like, and the realizations were what shifted my thinking. And the first realization, no one woman got smart about money until she figured this out, that no one is going to do it for me. Prince Charming isn't coming. Now, Prince Charming doesn't need to be a man. It could be anything that we think will save us financially. It could be, it could be an inheritance. It could be a job.
yeah,
It could be the lottery. It could be an amorphous something.
yeah.
But that's when I really got, wait a minute, no one's going to do this for me. But at the same time, they said, no one's going to do this for me. They also got, I don't have to do it alone.
Mm,
And this is really important because we women are so relationship oriented. And women in general, we tend to isolate ourselves, especially when we're uncomfortable, when things are tough. But it's really surrounding ourselves with support, with financial professionals. I found that the women who had the highest net worth
mm,
didn't necessarily make the most money, but they all worked at some point with financial professionals, a team of financial professionals.
mm.
So between realizing I can't do this, no one's going to do this for me, but realizing I don't have to do it alone was a godsend. And another realization. Oh, go on.
No, I'm like, amen, amen to that, because just even that alone, I think there's this overt belief that it, like, somewhere we thought we had to figure it all out. And it's like, what the heck? That's not true. So I'm like, just in myself, like, I love that you said that. It's so important. I can see that that's like a huge shift.
It was huge for me.
Yeah.
I mean, uh, it was also quite disturbing for a while because if no one's going to do this for me, and I felt so ignorant. But then
Right.
what I realized, it's just small steps consistently taken. And I've come up with what I call the busy woman's guide to financial success. And it's 3 steps. If you do this is what I did. And I still do it to this day. So if you want to get smarter about money, because it never ends, but you do these 3 steps, and I swear in just a few months, you will notice a big difference. Every day, read something about money, even if it's just for a minute or two. See, I thought I had to read a whole book. No, even if it's just for a minute, even if it's just perusing the headlines of the business section of the newspaper, even if it's just getting a book and reading a paragraph before you go to bed. Every day, read something about money, because it's kind of familiarizing ourselves with the jargon and the current trends. 2, every week, have a conversation about money, preferably with someone that knows more than you. I think it is our secrecy and silence that keeps us stuck. That's why I created a online community of women, because to talk about money as women, we talk about money so differently than the male does. Very different. So talk about money. And what I did is I just started asking people who were smart about money. I started asking them questions. How did you get smart? What's the best advice someone gave you? What's the worst advice? What's the biggest mistake you've ever made? What's the smartest thing you ever did? Just ask them questions, and people were so open to sharing. So every day read, every week talk, and every month save automatically. Automatically have the bank transfer money from your checking account or your payroll account to a savings account. Small amounts. Start small, because small amounts consistently saved add up. They add up, and it gets your brain in the habit of saving.
Beautiful. This is so brilliant. And I can say your community, the Wealth Connection, is just amazing, and just filled with like just loving, kind people that want to help each other. And I think you're right, as women, in community, like this should not be something to feel ashamed of or secret around. And it's so interesting, because I've experienced some of these shifts myself. And one of the things you just said with the saving, I have to say, like, I remember there was a time it was like very small amount. I just was saving. I was just to get in the habit. And I was shocked at how much actually, at how that grew. Like just absolutely shocked. Even both in savings account, but also in, very basic in my 401k. And I was like, wow, who would have thought that $50 like over time, and it's just, I think this is so doable. Okay, every day read something, so that you're also, I think there's like it makes it less scary. And
Yes. Yes.
yeah, I mean, a lot of the jargon, I got to be honest, I still don't fully understand or know all of it, but it's getting better. And I think you're right, like reading something every day so it's not as scary. Every week having a conversation with at least someone who knows more than you do about money, and this every month making sure you're saving automatically. That's so good, Barbara. Oh my gosh, so helpful. Like we all need to do that for sure. 100%. I I am curious, because one of the things that I've also loved about you is I know you've brought in kind of a spiritual angle and talked openly about, for example, working through A Course in Miracles, and would love to like bridge that with money, because I think it's so powerful. And it's one of the things when I was reading, your books and works, I'm like, oh, this is really feeling like so heart-centered and feels true, and I just think it's powerful. Can you share a little bit about the spiritual component too?
So for me, my success at learning about money was very much a spiritual experience. I was really having trouble until I discovered A Course in Miracles, which is a spiritual text. But I never talked about it. And it wasn't until I think my 4th or 5th book came out Sacred Success, A Course in Financial Miracles, that I came out of my spiritual closet. And I remember I was really scared to do that. I was said, what will people think? And there was one line in my book in that book that I kept putting in and taking out and putting in and taking out because I got scared. And after the book came out, I left it in. After the book came out, Publishers Weekly gave it a really wonderful review. And they started the review with that line. And I thought, I felt so justified. And that line was, I believe that money is God made visible.
Ooh.
Because money gives us choices. Money gives us freedom. Money can't buy happiness, but poverty can't buy happiness either. But money does give us choices and freedom to live the life that God means us to live.
Ooh, I've got chills as you're saying that. I mean,
And there's a saying that I love, one of my favorite quotes by who's that? Beckwith, Michael Beckwith of
yes,
Agape Church.
yes.
He said, "You cannot be the light of the world if you can't pay your light bills." And it's
Oh,
like we are all meant to be the light of the world. We are such bright lights.
yeah.
But in order to shine our light at maximum wattage, we have to become financially responsible. You know, you cannot pursue your purpose and play full out if you're drowning in debt or struggling to.
Yeah. Oh, this is powerful. I love, first of all, I love Reverend Michael Beckwith's work, and what you just said really hit. It's like, how can you be that light if you can't pay the lights that are in your own, like, and it reminds me also of, the idea of giving from overflow versus an empty tank. Like we've got to have resources and enough, both energetic, but also, money. I love that. I believe that money is God made visible. That is really courageous. I'm so grateful you kept it in, and I get it. Yeah, I get it. I'm like, thank God you kept that in. I mean, for those, and I'm thinking like for people that feel like, okay, I believe in God or I'm connected spiritually, and that keep struggling with maybe it's debt, maybe it's just making enough just to cover the basics, but not that full freedom. That when you think of like the divine, I just feel like infinite, right? Like it's just infinite love possibilities. What have you, just in terms of spiritually, like how to help somebody who might be
So
listening?
to me, as I discovered from my own process, I believe that financial success, becoming financially savvy, is a four-pronged process.
Mm.
And there's what I call the outer work of wealth, which is the practical. And that's what most financial education focuses on. The practical, telling the difference between a stock and a bond and how to negotiate. But when you're stuck on that, as I was, then it's really important to look at the other three prongs. And next is the inner work of wealth. That's looking at your attitude, beliefs, and early decisions you made about yourself and money. Because the most formative factor, the most important factor in our relationship with money is our early conditioning. That and any trauma, unhealed trauma. And unless we deal with the unhealed trauma, repressed emotions, early condition, we will be stuck. And the third prong is the higher work of wealth, which is the spiritual, which is really understanding that you are here for a purpose. And once you know your purpose, especially women, we are not, once we're financially stable, once we have food on the table, we have roof over our head, very few of us are motivated by money.
Right.
What we're motivated by is to be able to make a difference, to help others, to give back to our communities. So it's important because that's what motivates us, is to understand the higher work, which you're here for. And the fifth is what I call the deeper work, and that is the mind-brain connection, because the brain controls our behavior.
Yeah.
But trying to change our behavior is like going against gravity, because the brain doesn't want to change. But when you understand how the mind and brain work together, that the brain, which is a physical organ made of billions of cells, determines our behavior, but the mind, which is a non-physical entity, is what shapes our brain. So if you want to change those neural pathways, if you want to change your behavior, you have to focus on your thoughts and feelings. Changing those is what will, I won't say effortlessly, but it will certainly speed up the change in behavior.
Beautifully said. Yeah. And I know your book Rewired for Wealth is so good and so gets
Mm.
into this. And so I'm just going to reflect because we have the outer work. So there's the outer work. That's the first prong. The three other prongs, really, it's about the inner, is what I'm hearing. Like there's the inner work of wealth, which is the attitude and early decisions and trauma, like really looking, it's funny. As you were saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, I could see that. I just remembering my own like dichotomy of just seeing like, one side really struggled. The other side, wealth was there. And then my parents, my dad struggled big time with finances. And having two grandparents and families that were like so opposite with money. I remember it was very confusing. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. No wonder it took a long time to sort out these like, you know, like, okay, like it, one assumption and then the other, which literally they're very opposing of each other. And so that's an important piece of it. Then the spiritual, the higher work of wealth is having that, as you said. I think this is true, really getting that we're motivated once there's stability and a foundation to be of service, to make an impact. I'm like, oh yeah, absolutely. And then the deeper work of the mind brain connection. This really resonates for me.
Mm.
And I think one of the things I've noticed, and I'm curious just from a spiritual perspective or work with Course in Miracles and how you personally yourself, but also with all the women you've worked with around the obstacle of fear. Fear to me is, I'm just going to say it. I think it's one of the greatest, the biggest pandemics we have. I really think fear if you're not aware and careful around it, it can really suck out life. And it can seem, I mean, I really, the whole false evidence appearing real, it can seem real, obviously. So curious, like how, when fear comes up, either with yourself, I'm assuming sometimes it might, and with others. Yeah.
Fear's up all the time.
Yeah.
But, but see, the thing is, I know for a fact from interviewing hundreds and hundreds of successful women from my other books
Yeah.
that fear is an indicator light.
Mm,
Fear will tell you where your success lies because success always, without exception, lies just outside our comfort zone. Success in anything, whether it's making more money or losing more weight, we always have to go outside our comfort zone. So whenever I get scared, it's like, whoa, whoa, I must be going to the next level. So, Joseph Campbell said, the cave you fear to enter is where your treasure lies.
mm,
So while fear can be debilitating, if you shift the way you look at it and you think fear as the obstacle is the path, as the Zen saying go, you look at that, you look at it and say, this is where I need to go. This is where my success lies.
oh my gosh, that's really so powerful. The what I'm hearing, and also what you've taught yourself, and I love this, is when fear comes up, I love what you said, it's the indicator light of success. It's like, what's coming next? What is the next thing that I'm moving into? Which is a whole different way of looking at it, obviously, a whole different way. What do more recently, there's been, I know, a lot of fear, and I don't watch the news purposely for this reason. I try to watch like really fun shows on like food and design, and I'm really into The Lost Kitchen right now, which is super fun to watch, which she actually deals well with fear. But like there's such talk of the recession and money, and it's like bad times and economic, I mean, I know go back to 2008, there was a similar situation, but I'm just curious with when you hear these talking heads and people talking about the fear of money right now, it's
It's
like,
noise. It's just
okay,
noise.
it's
It's
noise.
just dealing with the natural cycle and the rhythms of the financial cycles. It just is. I mean, something very interesting happened. I found last year, I found my investment statement. I found a statement from 2007, when the beginning of the financial crisis. And what was last year, 2021? I saw that I had tripled my money. How many, 2007 to 2022? How many years is that? You don't have to be good at math to be good at money. I
Yeah,
just
I was
want
like,
to
I'm
tell you.
terrible, but it's something like that. Yeah. Yeah.
So, so the key, if you have to understand. So let me just go back. There's three ways. There's what I call the three rules of wealth.
Okay. Hey, beautiful you. It's Julie. I'm just pausing for a moment because I want to share in case you don't have this yet. I am going to encourage you to get your hands on my tool set to design your best life. It is free. Here's the copy. And it is pretty darn amazing, if I may say so myself. It is a 25-page guidebook. There are 7 specific practices, one for each day of the week, that are going to help you really to design your best life, to work on your mindset, on your mindfulness practices, designing your day very specifically. I'll show you here. I have a gorgeous tracking system that is all about how you align your values with how you're spending your time. And there's so much more. There's also a little extra free gift in there. I won't tell you what it is, but definitely make sure you get this for you, for your friends, whomever. It is free. Just go to juliereisler.com/toolset to get your copy. And would love to hear, what is your favorite tool out of the 7? Which one did you resonate most with? There is also an audio track in there as well. I've shared one of my quick grounding meditations. So I hope you pick it up. juliereisler.com/toolset. It's free. It's for you. I've used these tools with hundreds of clients and my coaching students, and I use them with myself. So I hope they help you to be your You-est you. All right, back to the show. Okay.
Here's how you create wealth. It's very simple. It doesn't take a lot of time to get smart. It doesn't take a lot of money to create wealth, and it's never, ever, ever too late to start. The 3 rules are: spend less, save more, invest wisely. That's all you have to know. Spend less than you earn, save more than you need, and put at least a portion of your money in assets that will go faster than inflation and taxes take it away. It's that simple. And the thing that throws most people off, I mean, we all get thrown off at different, spending too much and saving too little. But the key that really throws people off is the investment part.
Yeah.
But here's what I learned. The key is 2 things: three things. You need to be well diversified. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. Don't put all your money in tech stocks, but be well diversified over different categories. Diversification and time. The other thing is, money you need in 1 to 3 years should be in cash, because you don't want to have to sell if the market's down. But money you need in, say, 3 to 10 years can be invested in stocks and bonds and real estate, in assets that grow faster than inflation. But the key is you stick it out, because they have shown in any 10 to 20 year period, your chances of losing money are slim to none, especially if you can take the long view in 20 years. So you can really stack the odds in your favor if you're well diversified. The key is not making decisions on emotion. So when the sky is falling and everybody's screaming, like now, we're going into a recession, I just bought more stock. I learned my lesson the hard way. My first investment was in 1986. And I invested with a stockbroker. I didn't really understand what I was doing at all. 1987 came, and I don't know if you remember years, you're too young, you won't remember, but 1987, we had the biggest crash since the Depression. The market went down and it was huge. And headlines were screaming and the newscasters were screaming, and it was just doom and gloom. And I called my broker and I said, get me out of the market and get me out now. And he said, no, Barbara, don't get out. You're going to have capital gains tax to pay and the market's going to go back up. It always does. I sold. Well, the market went back up and I would be a lot richer today had I stayed. That was a great lesson. That was a great lesson. So I know the market's going to go down and the market will go back up and the market will go down and the market will go back up. And when the market's down, I do not read the newspaper. I do not look at my stocks. I do not look at anything. So it's staying for the long term. And also the third thing is really managing fees. Don't pay a lot of money in fees because you got to, whoever you're using, whatever fund you're in, if you're paying high fees, you got to outperform in order to make any money. So be diversified, think long term, and be aware of fees.
This is so helpful. I feel like a couple questions even in that, which would be, what about, some people have different thoughts about, well, one thing would be credit cards, the other would be investments. Like if you're new to the party, and it's like, okay, all right, so where do I even start? And do I do a Roth, the 401? Do I, like I'll say for myself, real estate's interesting to me. I haven't really studied it enough to understand it or how to get started in it. And it kind of scares me, even though I'm like, I would love to be invested in real estate. And I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing. So what do you,
Okay, that's good. If you don't know what you're doing, you don't do it.
that's why I'm not doing it. Not
You're
yet.
good. But that doesn't mean you can't, but you can get help. So I did something really smart. And what I would recommend for you and everybody else
Yeah.
who is a beginner or wants to get involved is to make an appointment with a fee-only financial planner. Not necessarily someone who's going to manage your money, although if you have someone managing your money, they can often make a plan and you trust them.
Yeah.
But you want to do a plan because the whole point of investing, you have to understand the whole point of investing is to make sure you meet your goals, to make sure that you have enough money for your short-term goals, middle-term goals, long-term goals. It's not to beat the market. That's what the men out there are saying. You want to beat, no. It's to make sure you have enough so you don't outlive your money, so you can live life how you want to live. And it's really important to sit down with an objective third party who charges a fee, who is not necessarily managing your money, and they'll ask you all these great questions. They'll ask you, about your income and your outgo. They'll ask you about your goals. They'll ask you about your risk tolerance. They'll ask you these questions you wouldn't have even thought of. And out of this, they will make a plan of how you should be invested in, what kind of insurance, how to protect yourself financially. That's the most important thing, how to protect yourself. And that not only do you have a plan that you can follow, but it takes the emotion out of it. It takes the emotion out of your decisions. That's the best thing I ever did. Now, I went to a financial planner way early because when I was interviewing all these women for my first book, so many of them had talked to a financial planner. So I went and I thought I was being very frugal. He told me if I kept spending like I'm spending, I will run out of money in 14 years. And I was very frugal. And that's the only reason it would take 14 years. So he helped me create a plan for my spending, for my budgeting, for my investing, small amounts. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So if you don't know, that's the beauty. You don't need to know everything, but you need to find the people who know more than you, that you trust, that can advise you. And there are some great people out there who can advise you on real estate. Really great people.
I'm like, okay.
And there are a lot of groups for women who are interested in real estate. Yeah.
Round two, I'm like, I want to share some. No, because it's interesting. I'm listening and I'm thinking for anyone listening, I have a very, third grade level. I wouldn't say kindergarten, and I would not say I'm even maybe fifth grade. Maybe like I'm about to go into middle school. That's my knowledge with money. And one of the things I did when I started my own businesses and got divorced. I found a financial planner, like somebody who manages the investments I have and things like that. Yet, what I'm realizing listening to you is I have not met with somebody. We haven't really done a plan per se. Like we've got it. So I'm like, this is important. I'm hoping everyone listening, like, you need a plan. I'm hearing you say that, Barbara, and it's kind of like, back to what you were saying with you gotta like your money's gonna handle you. Like you gotta know what's going on and you gotta have a little more, like I'm thinking for myself, all right, I think I need to make a little bit more of a careful plan now that I'm also, almost 9 years into doing this business thing myself. And I appreciate what you're saying, just really taking the emotion out of it. I think that that can be, especially for, I mean, most women, that's one of our superpowers is being empathic and having emotions that we're easily in tune with. And it's like, okay, it's important not to let that cloud anything. It's really important.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Super interesting. In terms of going to your book, Sacred Success, I just love how you talk about success from these like spiritual principles. Um, what I've been seeing, and I'm just curious what you think about this, that there's a lot of, and maybe when you do these interviews, you saw this for many of us women, especially those that are ambitious and sometimes can get into that overtly, I'll call it the masculine side of like achieving and you got to be successful. I think sometimes that definition of success, I know for me, it's been harmful to my health when I've been in that lane around it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And just would love to talk about the way you view this idea of sacred success and success from a whole different kind of more holistic place.
So the book Sacred Success, it was not the book I intended to write. The book I intended to write is I had written Secrets of Six-Figure Women by then and Overcoming Under-Earning, and I had overcome my under-earning and I was making six figures and nice six figures. And one night I woke up, I had a new goal. I wanted to make millions, help millions, give millions. And I thought, well, this is what I'll do. I'll interview women who are making millions, and that'll be my next book. And then well, I had no trouble finding women making millions, but 3 years later, I had no book. I was nowhere. 2009 was probably the worst year I'd had financially in a long time.
Mm,
And I remember a a coach said to me when I said, I don't know I'm just feeling like crap about myself. And I was doing terrible. She said, Barbara, you're too into doing. You need time for just being.
mm,
So I went on a 4-day retreat and I just took all my interviews, my transcripts of my interviews with these women. Because even though I was totally burned out, I knew, I felt there was something important in the interviews that I was missing, and I was determined to find it. And I did. And I did. And that's what turned into the book, Sacred Success. And I define sacred success as pursuing your soul's purpose for your own bliss and the benefit of others while being richly rewarded.
ooh,
And
can you
what I found is these women who were so extraordinarily successful financially and everywhere else, very successful, is that in order, so I'm going to back up. Can I just kind of give a little backstory here?
Yeah, please.
Basically, there's 3 levels of financial development. There's survival, stability, and affluence. Survival is not enough. Stability is just enough or almost just enough.
Yeah.
And affluence is more than enough. So to go from survival to stability, you must have a profit motive. You must. Money's a good thing. I love money. Money's great. I want to make money. But in order to go from stability to affluence, from just enough or not quite enough to more than enough, you have to give up profit as your primary goal. It is still an intended outcome, 100%. But the primary goal of sacred success, which is that journey to affluence, is what I call greatness. And I define greatness, paraphrasing a quote by Fred Buchner, is that place where your deep gladness, doing what you were born to do, put on this planet to do, when your deep gladness meets the world's deep hunger. And that is where you find greatness. And that intersection is the sacred success.
I am in love with everything you're saying. I can't write this fast enough. Yeah, this is just truth. That is, I'm going to ask to repeat if it's okay, because this is so powerful. Everyone, hopefully you're still here listening. We're gonna have this in the I'm gonna have this in the show notes, but we're gonna repeat this. This is so worth saying again. This is really, really important. Okay, first of all, sacred success is pursuing your soul's benefit, bliss,
Soul's purpose
purpose for
for
your,
the for your own bliss. In other words, doing what makes you happy.
Yeah.
For your own bliss and the benefit of others.
Love it.
It's not sacrificing your happiness for others, but your own bliss, happiness, while being richly rewarded. And that's where the profit motive comes in. But senior to the profit motive is your happiness and helping others.
Yep.
Happiness, serving.
This, and what you just said, again, I've got chills like half this entire interview, is these three levels. So this is really interesting. And I'm just thinking for our listeners who just to take and there's no judgment, like, where are you? Right. So survival. Ooh, that's not a fun place to be. That's not a fun place. That's the not enough. And I know you've experienced that probably when you went through your divorce and $1.8 million tax, but I can't even imagine. Stability is just enough, which is a jump. It's an important jump from survival. This is important because I know almost everybody who's here tuning in and listening, we're looking for affluence, which, going back to what you said, the idea of this is also, to me, more than enough. There's a feeling of God, of spirit in that. There just is, because the infinite is infinite. I mean, it's not, it doesn't stop at 4 roses. Go look outside. It's like, trees and I mean, I always think nature just gives us clues, right? Like, there's billions of trees. They're not like worried about the other tree next to them. And so what you're saying, though, this giving a profit as your primary goal, I got to be honest, that landed like a huge, like, I just felt like a plumb line through my body.
What do you mean?
Meaning that it's not about profit as your primary goal. You're saying, what I'm hearing is it's about that intersection of where you really feel, why you feel you're here on the planet, being of greatness and expressing that's what feels true.
But you also need to have the intention of having more, of making more. You need to have that profit as a goal.
Yes. It's just it's not the only thing.
It's not the only thing. It's not the only thing.
Yeah. I think, well, because what I've seen with others and sometimes myself, it's like, it's funny. I'm more oriented towards, all right, what am I going to do that can be of service to help people? And I found, especially when I focus there, the idea is that creativity, money follows that, versus when it's just, okay, how am I going to make money? And not thinking or feeling into how to be of service. It's just this, and is so important, what you're saying.
Well, it's kind of like eating white bread. It just doesn't nourish you, you know?
Yeah.
I mean,
really
it makes
but
but it doesn't nourish you.
Yeah. That is, oh, I love it. What I just, before we wrap, I want to ask, Barbara, what do you do on a daily basis? Like, if we were to just peek in, I have this like fun idea of someday I'm going to be like on a little retreat with you somehow. And so if we were together and you're like waking up, and what do you do to be you? Like, what are your practices that you do that help you stay spiritually aligned and connected and just in this place of abundance and flow?
I every morning I wake up like early and I do my half-hour stretching and I listen to country music, because music really feeds my soul. And country, love country, classic country, not new country. And And then my husband and I have breakfast in bed, and then we read today's lesson from the Course in Miracles, and we meditate, and then in my meditation I imagine how I want my day to go. I just and then I go and start my day.
Mm. That's awesome. That's, I was listening today. This is old school, but Neville Goddard. You probably, I'm sure, heard Neville Goddard.
Oh yeah,
Woo.
very old school, but was one of the first ones who really introduced this new thought, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful. What were you listening to? What was he saying?
Oh, wow. There's like I listen to him often, and it was his book, Healing is the Answer, I think, or that, the talking about what you just said, the emotional place, but also our imagination is really, our connection to the divine. And so that imagining how you want your day to go, I was like, oh, that's
Yeah,
so
and
powerful.
also when I'm making breakfast, I always listen. Always go on YouTube and listen to Neville Goddard or Tina Louise Spalding, who does the chorus, or some kind of inspirational. I think it's really important to surround yourself with inspiration, because you talked about fear, because the world you're surrounded by fear.
Yeah.
And so it's really important to stay in that energy of inspiration and that upliftment.
100%.
And it's really important who you hang around with. I've really culled a lot of people from my life.
Mm. I this I feel like this is how I always feel with you. I'm like, I could just keep talking to you for hours and hours and hours. And I'm like, yes, amen. Heck yes. Well, I love hearing this because it's like we get to curate our own energy and our 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 life, our how we're spending our time, what we're listening to, what we're believing. And, I know you've been doing this work for years, and it's really helpful to hear. It's funny, I just asked my husband to start a course in miracles with me, and we're gonna be doing that soon. And we've made a decision. We're gonna start it. And I just, you keep working that. This is like an ongoing, this is not like someday you arrive.
No, for over 40 years, I've been studying the course. And if you're going to study the course, what I would recommend, because the course is a really tough read, really tough.
Yeah.
The best way to go about it, in my opinion, is to do a lesson a day. Just start with the first lesson. There's 365 lessons. Because what that does, those lessons are affirmations that shift your thinking, because A Course in Miracles calls itself A Course in Mindfulness. And what it does is it shifts, because it says there's no neutral thoughts. Every thought you have is producing some form at some point. So the key to shifting your life is shifting your thoughts. So start with the course every day, every morning, just read a lesson.
I love that. That is, by the way, what you just said, that there's no neutral thought. That is something to really, really sit with and remember for all of us, because that in itself, like, and it's really, the question is this thought like serving my highest self or not? And that's what I think what I'm hearing, all of what you're saying, right? That fear, to just that fear can really, it can be, it can really
Yeah,
be detrimental. We want to be mindful.
right. And the course defines a miracle. A miracle is simply a shift in perception. Like, you are seeing things one way. This is so scary. Oh my God, this is so scary. You shift your perception, or, oh, this is a sign of where I need to go. I need to go. When you're just shifting your perception is and there's there's a lesson in the course that I use as a prayer when I want to shift my perception. And the line says, above all else, let me see this differently.
Mm.
So if you're feeling fear about anything, whether it's a recession or your marriage, just say, how can I see this differently?
Mm.
And you will be amazed where you will go with it.
Beautiful. Yeah. This is so powerful. Oh, I so appreciate everything. It's funny, everything that I wanted to talk about with you. I'm like, oh my gosh, I mean, I could keep going. And I just, I so appreciate your vulnerability. You're being so genuine and
Mm,
frankly so wise, Barbara. And I think there's so much here, just really getting, I just come back to this quote you said. I'm still like taking this in, the whole idea of, you said that if I can find it, with God really being is is money. How did you say it? It was your,
money is God made visible.
yeah, money is God made visible. That I'm actually going to put that as a post-it on my mirror. I love that.
Wow.
I love that. Money is God made
And
visible.
see, and I was terrified to put that, write that, terrified.
Right.
So
Like the fear probably, well, that's the thing, right? Like, thank God you listened and you did it anyhow. Like you did it afraid, I'm assuming, because you did it.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That's the goal. That's what I'm hoping is for everybody listening. Cause there's a lot of, I think, fear out there, but especially with money, it's like, don't like take what Barbara did. Like you kept that's the quote. That's the thing that caught that book to be, called out. And we all have, like, back to what you said, I really believe it. That's the whole idea with even being your You-est you. It's like actually your God-given gifts, your talents, your greater purpose. And even like putting that together when you have that intention, as you said, both of having more money and expressing as your higher self, your best self, used to, whatever you call it. That's where we go from the stability into affluence and being able to give more, frankly, being able to give more.
I am passionate about helping women create wealth, not just get out of debt, not just that, that's all important. But my passion is achieving wealth because it's not about the money.
Yeah.
It's who they have to become a container that can attract, that can keep, that can grow their wealth. And that's what it's really about.
Mm,
It's
that
never the
there.
money.
I'm like, that's it. It's who
That's
do you
it.
have to become? Yeah.
And who you have to become is your true, authentic self that has been conditioned out of you for so long. It's been conditioned by this collective trauma that we women have experienced. It's been conditioned by our parental upbringing. It's been conditioned by the religion, by whatever. It is shifting the conditioning to finding your true self.
Mm,
And that's where wealth comes from.
my gosh. I I'm just writing as fast as I can, and I know it recording this. I've got chills, my legs, my arms. What you just said to me felt like a truth nugget. It just, that's it. It's who you have to become, and who you have to become has actually been there the whole. It's you. It's your authentic
You,
you. That's right. It's actually probably easier than most of us make it because it's there. It's who you are the whole time. That's that's one of the things I love about you is you've chosen to do that. And I actually think when you decided to put that quote in, there's something very miraculous and powerful because you created a bigger container for
yeah, I
yourself.
did. I did. I
Yeah.
came out of hiding. And it's
Yes.
good.
Ah, and I guess I just thank you because it's so inspiring to me and for all of us, for all of us, everyone listening, this is the thing. We can all do this. We can all do this in our own way. That's one of the things I love about you is it's inspiring me, like, where can I, and to anyone listening, where can you become your most authentic self? Where can you become that bigger container for greater wealth of all kinds?
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful way to end.
I thank you so deeply. I mean, I am going to just say thank you to the divine who put us on the same path somehow. And you've become a mentor to me and maybe even more than you know, a teacher and somebody I just love wholeheartedly. And thank God you've chosen to really step into your most authentic self. I mean, so many millions of people are more evolved today because of you and your work. And I know anyone listening today is going to be better off in their life today. And I love what you're up to. I really do.
Well, right back at you, Julie. I love what you're up to, and I love how authentic and genuine you are. So thank you so much. This was really fun talking to you.
Oh,
Great
thank
questions.
you. Thank you. And I'm going to thank you, my dear listener, for hanging with us. Wasn't this so fun? We're going to have, Barbara doesn't know this. She might have to come back yet again because I love talking to her. I could do this for hours. So I just want to thank you for hanging in and for creating a greater container to be your you-est you, to step in your most affluent, abundant self. We're rooting for you. Right, Barbara? We're rooting for everyone listening.
For your biggest cheerleaders right here.
Yes. Yes.